Hey everyone, it's David Barnett. I'm here with Mike Finger from Exit Oasis. He talks to business owners all the time. Some of them are proactive. They go out online and they try to figure out what their business is worth. Today, we're going to be talking about online small business value calculators and do they really work or not?
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses while controlling risk. So, if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So, be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it.
Are you a small business owner that's thinking about exiting your business now or in the next few years? My team and I are here to help with our unique zero commission program that we've been using since 2016. We can show you what your business is worth, prepare the package you'll need before you meet your first buyer, even run a confidential online advertising program for you just like business brokers do. And we'll coach you through the whole process, or you can hire us to manage it all for you, including coordinating your whole sell-side deal team. Head over to howtosellmyownbusiness.com to learn about how my team and I can help you get ready by watching a series of videos we prepared that explain each step in detail. And if you're ready or just curious to learn more, reach out to us and we'll get you started or schedule a call to answer your questions. I look forward to meeting you and learning more about your business. Mike Finger, I already mentioned you're from Exit Oasis. You want to give us a quick rundown on what Exit Oasis is and who you are and what your business is?
Sure, David. I'm pleased to be here back again. It's always a good time. My name is Mike Finger, as you mentioned. Exit Oasis is the business I use to coach small business owners who are interested in preparing their business for sale. I'm not a broker. I don't ultimately care if they sell. That's their decision. What we work to do is put them in a place where they can be prepared to sell. And that my time in that space is kind of what brought us to the conversation we're here to have today, because we're living in a world where it seems like every day I see more offerings online for places that I can go as a small business owner to value my business.
There's always an app for that, isn't there?
There's an app for that. There's a calculator for that. And it's getting easier and easier, David. It takes seconds. We'll explore.
Well, and when you reached out to me, and you know what I'm going to do in the show notes, I'm going to go and I'm going to put links to some of the previous times that you've been on the show, because you've been here, I don't know, 5 or 6 or more times, I'm sure. And then we did the your Exit Squad series together as well. So, I went and dug out when you approached me with this. I went and dug out an old file. So it was a small business, and this was done years ago, and it wasn't a very good business. And I kind of gave you that information, and I thought, hey, let's test it out and let's see what these calculators say. And so, how much fun did you have with that information?
It was really interesting. I mean, this all started from a LinkedIn post that I did after observing the fact that there were an increasing numbers of these tools out there, and some just light experimentation on my part. What became very obvious very fast was that it was really hard to get a zero, right? It was really hard to get from this calculator that my business wasn't sellable. Then you and I know the problem with that is that most businesses never sell. So
Right.
there's this gap. And so what I wanted to do is figure out if there was a way we could test a little bit more rigorously the premise. And so, yes, to what you mentioned earlier, I reached out to you because I know you're in this business. I know you know valuation backwards and forwards. And so the theory was that you would give me a set of financials for a real live business that you had worked with before, and we would take it to market, so to speak. We would go to test the some of the valuation calculators that were available online. And so, we started with the numbers, right? This is the sheet that you shared with me.
Oh, here, let me share this with everyone. So
Sure.
it's a little bit small, but I'll describe it to people. It's basically uh, fiscal year 2017 through 2021 of a little company, and they've got sales ranging from about 300 grand as high as 850 and then back down to 500. And down at the bottom, the SDE ranges from a low of 9,000 to a high of 600 or 263,000. And the last year was only 31,000. So this is a business. It's a small flooring contractor. So this is a subcontractor that gets called in by someone who's building a big building or something, and they come in, they lay the flooring, and obviously very cyclical, very affected by the macro economy for building trades, but also this kind of business, it's tough to get great margins because general contractors know what you should be charging them, and if you don't give them a price that they think is in line with their expectations, they're just going to ask somebody else, right?
Sure. And it was a great example for me to use, for a number of reasons that we'll touch on as we go through. But what I did then is I took this information that you provided, which is fairly detailed, and I went and pulled out the basics, right? Because what I wanted to do with this test is approach these calculators in the way that most small business owners would, right? They're going to have their basic financials available. They're going to look to provide the information that the calculator asks for, but may or may not have a lot beyond the basics to give the calculator. So essentially what I did is I took those basics and pretended it was my ABC company, and I went up to find some valuation calculators to use. And just to be real clear to those that are watching or listening, this wasn't a gotcha test for me, right? I didn't go out looking for really bad calculators or really good calculators. I did what I think most small business owners would do in this situation. I went to Google, I Googled valuation calculators for my business, and I took a random sampling from the first 2 pages, right?
And how many results were there? Do you guess?
Thousands, right? I mean, I didn't, test them out to see which were actually calculators or references to, but I whenever I had questions about how to approach something I ran into here, I went back to, well, what would I do if I were a small business owner? And again, you'll see a couple of those situations as we go through this. So, are you ready to go to the first valuation?
Yeah, I am.
All right.
Let's look at number one.
You'll see up in the upper corner here of the screen, for those that are listening, I just keep a little spreadsheet there of the numbers, because I use the same numbers for every valuation calculator. So the first calculator is for a large online business marketplace.
Okay.
The place that helps people buy businesses, sell businesses, and they have a valuation feature there. And so entered to get to that part of the website, and this was the entry screen, right? What is your business worth? Starts with some fairly basic entries, right? I've got to enter my zip code. I've got to enter annual revenue, and you can see here I pulled that 513 directly from this year, the most recent year's financials. Annual cash flow, I used the SDE for that figure. I filled in a couple other things. And so, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to point out as I go through these is some of the basic challenges that I ran into as a potential user. So, for example, this business, the calculator asked me to describe what category my business was in.
Okay.
I knew it was a construction related business. I knew it was a service business. The problem is that I didn't have those options, right? So I ended up in another service business, press the wrong button, suddenly find myself with an error message, select a different business category. So again, it's one of those things like with any online entry form can be a little glitchy, but I went into the general category, plugged in my numbers, and wrestled with some of the terms, right? Basic terminology. They're telling me annual revenue. They're telling me annual cash flow. What they're not telling me is, do I use EBITDA here? Do I use SDE? And again, you and I are familiar that cash flow generally refers to SDE, but it doesn't tell me, right? It doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't educate me if I'm a small business owner approaching this fresh. The other thing it doesn't tell me is annual cash flow. Is that this year? Is that the average of several years? So again, right from the start, I'm making arbitrary decisions about my entry that I know are going to affect the value. So again, I went with the most recent year.
And with this particular company, if you had gone with the year before, it would be vastly different outputs because
Right.
the revenue and performance in this company varied wildly from
It
one
was a
year to the
swing of
next.
$220,000 in EBITDA in that time period. So, but the good news is with the entry I did, I got a high estimate of $200,000, a low estimate of $150,000, which I averaged those out to $175,000 value, which is about 5.6 times my SDE for the year that we used. So valuation number one, $175,000, 2 points of entry, 2 data points of entry. Now, I want to call out here, David, this at least tells me it's a ballpark estimate, right? It doesn't say this is the value of your business. It tells me it's an estimate. We are going to find as we go forward, others are not quite so hesitant. So yeah, that's valuation number one, $175,000.
Okay.
All right, let's go to valuation number. Oh, well, before we leave valuation number one, after I left that,
and you're not going to tell us which website this is.
I'm not going to tell you which website this is,
okay.
But for $60, well, $59.95, I could get more information on the valuable valuation that they had just provided.
Okay.
So I did not spend that money.
I wonder if you'd have to put in more data as well as the payment.
I don't know. Okay, valuation number two. This was for a huge insurance financial management company.
Okay.
All right. I go to that valuation calculator. And
so is there interest perhaps in helping people with their, plan their retirement, trying to give business owners an idea of what their business might sell for before they retire?
Yeah. Clearly, this is designed to be a draw to owners. And it's funny, some of the narration here calls that out, right? As a business owner, you probably play a major role. If an illness or injury kept you from working for an extended period of time, could your partner afford to buy you out, right? So it's all about insurance. It's all about that sort of thing. So again, they start with a very basic question. Do you have a service business or a non-service business? Then we get to 3 additional questions. First question is average owner's salary for the past 3 years. Now, to start with, we see an improvement over the first one, right? They're telling me what they're asking, what period of time. I can certainly plug that in with more accuracy, which I did based on the numbers that we had for the business. Average annual profit for the past 3 years. So again, now we're looking at that more traditional 3-year time period. I'm taking the average annual profit. Again, I used, I believe this comes from the EBITDA number. And then throwing a little glitch into the mixture, they ask for net book value. And David, you will remember this is the moment where I emailed back to you and said, listen, they're asking for net book value. What do you think it is for this business? Now, again, it's not a number that most owners are going to know off the top of their head, right?
Yeah.
There's no place for me to click to get this defined or to get any guidance. So again, if I'm an owner, I'm probably going to Google net book value, read what it says, looking at my balance sheet, trying to figure out. Odds are pretty good it's not going to be an accurate number that I give them. So, and again, another problem to call out here, each calculator based their valuation on something different.
And for net book value, so let me give you a little bit of background for everyone who's watching about this company. So this company actually has quite a bit of assets in it, and if you went and added up the value of the different things that it owned, vehicles, equipment, etc., there is a substantial value there to the assets, but it's all been depreciated. And the company actually, in its most recent year, was paying the owner, like he was basically taking more money out than the company was earning. So at the time of the last set of financial statements, the owner's equity section in the balance sheet was a negative figure. So technically, this business was insolvent, which you can be temporarily if you're insolvent for too long. You usually end up in trouble you can't recover from. So I think I told you to put 0 for the book
Yeah, that's
value.
exactly what I did. Yep, we
Yeah,
plugged in a
okay.
net book value of 0. I will call out, this is the only calculator that I came across that actually asked about the value of assets.
Oh, really? Okay.
Only one. So again, each of the calculators seem to base the valuation on something different, some different expectation of input. But I plugged in the 3 points of contact. It asks me what percentage of the business do I own, which
Mhm.
again, it may be a helpful clarification if I'm a partner and I don't do that mental math in my in my head afterwards.
Oh, and it helps to flag it as a better sales lead too if there's partners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So here, my valuation, $250,000.
Okay.
That's an 8 times my SDE for this year. Um, I want to point out that we don't get an estimate language here anywhere. My
Okay.
total business value, based on this huge insurance company's online tool, is $250,000. And I'll probably repeat this a couple times, but it's so easy for me to see a small business owner use this tool, come up with a $250,000 value, and then go forth and live their life, assuming that whenever they're ready to, they'll snap their fingers and turn their business into $250,000. And again, we know that's a naive thing to do, but I've done it, and many owners do the same thing. So valuation number 2, $250,000, not an estimate.
Okay.
All right, valuation number 3. This is with a regional bank, not a small bank, not a massive bank, but a decent sized regional bank. And this is their entry screen. This is what comes up first. So I've got 3 points, 3 data points of entry. I've got current operating profit. I've got expected annual growth.
Mm.
And how long do you expect to grow at that rate?
All right. So I mean, most small business owners do have crystal balls. That's what allows them to navigate the future of their
And they're
business. So
never over optimistic, are they,
that's
David?
right. Okay. So when I see stuff like this though, but I can tell you that what is hidden behind this web page is some kind of valuation formula that comes from the world of publicly traded stocks.
Sure.
Because in the world of publicly traded stocks, growth rates are very important in figuring out maybe what a stock should be worth. And so it really opens the door as to who did the legwork to set this up. Did they delegate this to an IT department person who just kind of looked something up online? How do I value a business? ended up, breeding something to do with stock investing. I don't know.
Yeah. I again, let's say you're 100% correct on that, and I have no reason to doubt that. There's none of that description here, right? There's nothing that might put me as a small business owner in a place where I'm questioning these results or wondering if their methodology applies or anything like that. This is simply current operating profit, expected annual growth, and how long do you expect that growth rate? And so I started trying to fill this out. Current operating profit, I went up to my most recent year. I have a loss of $43,000, and the calculator does not accept a negative number.
Okay. They don't want you as a client.
That must be it. So I put a 0 there as a holding, and then I put an expected annual growth, and I'm like, I don't know. They start at 15. I'll put it to 10. That seems like a reasonable growth goal for my small business. And then I just went with the default.
But hang on, this business just could just as easily in the next year have a year like the prior year.
Yeah.
Which would be what? Like, tremendous growth.
Yep. I know.
700% growth,
I know.
SDE. So,
and again, as I point out here, I had no idea what to do here, right? Going back into small business owner mode, I'm like, okay, I'm generally optimistic. They put 15 in. I'm going to back it off a little bit. I'm going to stick with the default they give me. And again, as I would as an average business owner, I said, well, they're not going to accept this year's number, so I'll just go use last year's number.
Right.
That's what I did. I pressed the magic button, and I get a $635,000 valuation. That's 20 times this year's seller's discretionary earnings.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly enough, I played with this one a little bit more because of that number. And what I determined is the calculator simply took whatever number I plugged in as current operating profit and multiplied it times 3.6. So when I move this number down to 100,000, it's $360,000. If I move this number up to $1 million, all it did was multiply the number I put in times 3.6. Now, again, I don't know if that changes dramatically or if I up or down the percentages or how, but what became very obvious is that there ain't a lot going on behind the curtain here.
So I'm guessing if you change the growth rate, maybe that factor would change, the multiplication factor, and someone basically has got this table. And they're just drawing their multiplication factor from a table based on what you input.
Yep.
Okay.
So again, $635,000. All right. Valuation number 4. And this one was interesting because this is a calculator from a company that sells online calculators that you can put on your website. So,
interesting.
I could actually buy this calculator and put it on my company's website as a draw. Come to Exit Oasis, get your free online valuation. Then, I'll gather your contact information. All right. So this one started out with a little bit more narrative. What's my business worth? It talks about the fact that they're going to look at future profits. And then it identifies the inputs. Annual earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation. Okay, we can get the EBITDA number. Anticipated rate of earnings compensation growth. Level of business industry financial risk. Excess compensation paid to the owner, if any. Number of years earnings are expected to continue. And a discount for lack of marketability. Now, again, I've got no little question mark.
What's our risk level?
Right? I've got no little question mark that I can press to get some guidance or an answer. I've got no education links. I've got nothing. So as the owner, I'm doing this entry blind.
Okay.
So what did I do? Annual earnings before interest. I took a 3-year average of EBITDA. I left the default. I'm sorry. I think what I did here is that 10% is I used the same as that previous calculator.
Yeah.
I left it at average in terms of industry financial risk because I don't know. Excess compensation, years of earning, and the lack of marketability. I've got no definitions provided, so I just left the defaults.
Okay.
Is that accurate to my industry? I don't know. But I'm not sure what else I'm going to do. Press the button.
Oh, look at that.
429,000. That's a 14x my current SDE.
429,881.
That's right.
Don't leave the closing table without those $81.
This is my valuation. Again, at least it's an estimated valuation, calls out future earnings. I can see the math being done right here, right? Here's the calculated discount rate. That's the number I plugged in that I made up because I didn't know. Less adjustment for small size, lack of marketability. So the consequence of the 22% default was this reduction of $121,000. So again, valuation number 4, $429,000. That's a 14x multiple. So again, those are the 4 that we did. My financials did not change. Remember, I'm using the same numbers in each of those. I've got valuation 1 at 175, 250, 635, or to be fair, 0. It's one of those two because they wouldn't accept my negative number. And then 429,881. What's my business worth, David?
Well, when I looked at this business, I saw obviously that there's an opportunity here for someone to make some money because they had some years where they made a lot of money. And, I did these different mathematical methodologies. So let me cover what I did is I looked at, number one, the assets. So what we had the owner list out all the stuff that the business owned, and we didn't do an actual appraisal. We just kind of spitballed what things would probably be worth in a fair market way. And we figured out that if someone were going to replace his business, with used stuff, but with all the stuff he owned, it would be close to $400,000 worth
Okay,
of stuff. Okay.
interesting.
Now, what's interesting though is he did not have any kind of consistent earnings, but there was a year when his SDE was over $250,000, right? So I averaged out a bunch of the years and I looked at what other people had paid for similar small subcontractor type businesses. And that methodology gave me $162,000. And then I looked at what would somebody expect to earn managing a business like this? And I tried to figure out what that average EBITDA number was. Um, because really, if somebody's going to buy a small business, and they're likely going to be the ones that work in it, they're going to be earning that wage of the owner manager. But if the business doesn't really provide much more than a wage, then why would someone buy a business? Why wouldn't they just get a job, right?
Absolutely.
So in looking at the excess earnings or the EBITDA over that stretch of time, I then looked at the multiple of EBITDA methodology, and this is a really small business that we typically don't look at multiple of EBITDA, but I find multiple of EBITDA is insightful for very small cash flowing businesses because it highlights, what's my reason for buying this? Like, how much extra do I get? That methodology told me this business was only worth about 80 grand. So I kind of weighted those 3 things, the assets value, what people pay for businesses like this as a function of the average cash flow and what it would be worth as a function of the EBITDA. And I came up with 144 grand. I said, basically he would have to sell those $400,000 worth of assets at a substantial discount if he wanted to sell it all in one big lump sum and introduce that buyer, to all of his general contractors that he's doing business with. And I asked myself, could I see somebody who wanted to get into this business, seeing it as a valuable transaction to them as a buyer to do that? And I came to the conclusion that it was, because they would basically be able to fit out their entire business at a discount to what it would cost to buy them the stuff, and they would get, these doors open for these relationships. But I don't think it would be worth it for somebody to go buy all the stuff used and start a business. Like I think if somebody was thinking that they might start a business or buy one, if they looked at his business, they would very quickly realize they should not buy $400,000 worth of stuff to get into this business.
Sure.
Like I think he would dissuade people from starting something, but to sell what he had at a discount, I think people would do it. Now, would you like to guess what his reaction may have been to my story and my summary of what I thought of his business?
I'm flashing back to how many different owners who, when they hear the news, circle the wagons and decide they're going to try to figure out a different way.
Yeah, that's what he did. So he didn't proceed at all. He actually went and found a business broker who was willing to list it for $600,000. So it was on the market for a few years at that price, which is just, I guess maybe they used one of these value calculators, maybe the third one there that you found.
It's what it's worth, David. It's what it's worth. It says so right here.
But I happen to know that the gentleman is still doing it. So there's been no transaction, and he's still in it. And, I don't wish him any ill will. I hope he's had some more of these $250,000 years, and that if it still continues to oscillate the way it was at that point, I hope that he's taken some of those big profit years and he's built up some kind of retirement savings, outside of the business, because it's going to be a tough one. It's like I mentioned earlier, it's a business where his margins are difficult to raise. He is dependent on a few big jobs every year because he works under general contractors. They basically dictate, what you can charge. He's got, exposure to the macro economy. So in times when, buildings are going up like crazy, he's busy, and in other times he's not. It's a tough thing. It's a very tough business for it to ever be sold. And I'm not sure if I'll hear the full story when he does leave the industry, but yeah, that's what I thought it was worth. And my number was smaller than any of these.
Yeah, and you got there with so much more data than any of these calculators asked for, right? This was the outcome of this test for me, is that it reinforced my concern about the output of the calculators, their accuracy, but more importantly, their impact on the owners who use them. Because if I come and I use this calculator and I get a 635 number or a 429 number, and I genuinely think my business is worth that, because none of these calculators said anything to lead me to believe otherwise. None of them said, but if you really want to know what your business is worth, a full valuation is probably none of that, right? And so it's so easy for me to see owners take this information in and reinforce the chronic condition that owners have around this topic, which is to wait, right? We wait to engage this topic, as your owner talked about, until it's too late. And then what we need for the business is so distant from what the business is worth, but we don't have any time to actually change that dynamic. We don't have any time to adjust our contribution to our IRA or 401k. We don't take the action because we don't have the information. Now, traditionally, owners haven't had the information because the valuation was too expensive, but now these tools are out there and they're free and they're chronically wrong. Right? Because I would challenge you or anyone listening or watching this, try to get an unsellable outcome from a free online calculator. Try to get someone to tell you that your business is worth nothing. It's really hard to do. And but yet that's the condition of most businesses when it comes to sellability.
And so do you think then that this is just going to exacerbate the problem when you go talking to business owners about, well, I mean, I don't know, do you go knocking on doors looking for customers or do people find you?
Well, I don't knock on doors. The people find me, but I can't see how this won't help, or how this will help, because again, most common up to this point has been people coming to me and saying, "I don't know what my business is worth." They have ideas about it. They have expectations. They want it to, I wouldn't sell for less than 3 million kind of thing, but that's different than my business is worth X. This is telling
You
me
think
what
it's
my
giving
business.
them confidence in their ignorance? Like
How
it's
could it not, David?
right.
I mean, how I don't. I understand the desire of folks using these calculators on their sites, right? I want to draw the business owner in. But if the idea is I'm going to do that by giving them value through a valuation, I would suggest that they're doing the exact opposite.
Well, you mentioned some of the companies that have put these up there. Do you think that, really it's about generating some kind of sales lead, for the other things that they're selling, whether it's the bank accounts or the insurance policies or something like that? Like, I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
that's got something to do with it. But then, these types of organizations that you're talking about are typically, very fearful of liability issues. I mean, do you think that there's some kind of liability attached to misleading someone about something as fundamental as this?
I'd be shocked if the owner could make that case, right? I mean, it's not as if I've paid a bunch of money to get a valuation.
Mm.
It's not as it again. I'm troubled. I'm troubled by the reality that this contributes to the small business owners and how they engage this topic. And again, there's other, let's be clear, there's other online calculators out there. I purposely avoided those calculators that had 3 pages of entry I need to do, right? I not only did I not want to take the time, but I knew that presenting the outcome or the process through our conversation would be that much more difficult. I'm confident there's calculators out there that produce good results, or at least better results, or results that would cause an owner to question. I'm not whitewashing here and saying all that online valuation calculators are bad, but just this simple experiment, right?
Mm.
Real financials plugged into 4 different calculators, giving me a range from 5.6x to 20x.
Well, especially when the overall average for small Main Street business valuation is about 2.4 times SDE. I
Right.
mean, all of them overshot it
Yeah.
tremendously.
Yep.
Um, Now, and I know some of them were asking about profit, and you put in the EBITDA number, but again, we weren't clear about what number they were looking for.
That's right. When they asked for operating profit, that's what I plugged in. When they
Yeah.
didn't, again, that's these calculators aren't designed to teach, because there's no education link to it. The calculators aren't designed to really pull out that detail. Again, there are calculators out there that do that. Unfortunately, this process reconfirmed my initial expectation that I was going to say buyer beware, but seller or business owners aren't really paying anything for this. So it's like owners beware that this free valuation is probably worth what you're paying for it.
Mm. When will the new business valuation calculator be installed at exitoasis.com?
What was that 429? Yeah, not anytime soon.
I just
You're the
figured
valuation
no matter what
expert,
numbers
David,
you
not me.
figured no matter what numbers people put in, it'll just say your business likely can't be sold.
That's right. That's all lead generation, right? Once they get past the discouragement. No, I laugh at that, but you and I both know that that's the true life experience of most owners.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, just at the end of 2024, I put out a video about some of the interactions I've had with financial planners. And financial planners are working with a lot of entrepreneurs to create a plan for their retirement. And I have run into many, 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 many people who have these retirement plans that have been designed around the expectation that some lump sum of money will be delivered when they turn 65 and sell their business.
Right.
And a lot of the times, these financial plans are created by the financial planner asking the business owner, what will you likely sell your business for when you retire? And sometimes these people are being asked in their 30s
Yeah.
and 40s about that exit that's going to happen, 30 years in the future. And people are coming up with numbers, and the numbers are being put into the plan,
Right.
which blows me away because, of course, there's no way to validate that. And I think in that video, I told the story of I was speaking with a financial planner here in the region, and he called me because he found my number online because his client, who they believed would be able to sell their business for a lot of money, is being told by a business broker that they're going to be lucky to sell it for its inventory value. And he was just like, well, how can that be? And he reached out to me, and I talked with him for 20 minutes on the phone. And I said, it sounds like the business broker is probably not that wrong, like, from what you've told me. But it was one of these businesses that had a huge boom in the post lockdown years.
Yep.
And then since then, it's kind of it's eased off, and there isn't so much excitement about that industry sector anymore, related to making your home nicer, right? So
Sure.
when everyone was forced to stay home, people wanted to make those investments, and then afterwards, now people are doing the things they used to do. So, what's going to happen to that plan? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
It's scary. I mean, as you know, for me, a lot of this work is about creating a wake up call for small business owners, right? Pay attention to this topic early, give yourself time to change your business, change the outcome because you're changing your business. It's a wake up call. And these online calculators, I'm afraid, are a snooze button for that. They are, oh, look, I'm there, or $635,000 my business is worth.
yeah. And in my experience, when a seller has their expectation raised so much, what ends up happening is they start to daydream about the things they're going to buy with the money. They start to think about getting this big check.
Yeah.
And so they think about the money they're going to get. Maybe they start thinking about an RV that they're going to buy, or they're going to buy timeshare somewhere nice and sunny or whatever. And then when it comes time to sell the business, if they're then faced with the market reality that their business is worth a lot less, they have a hard time agreeing to even do a deal because they actually need to mourn the loss
Right.
of the money they believed they owned, the like stuff that was never
You're
real in the
taking
first
their
place.
RV away from them, David.
Well, this is exactly it, right? Like
Yeah.
they've got this future pathway in their mind. Like, this is what my retirement's going to be look like. I'm going to drive, across the beautiful, um, you know desert areas of Utah or whatever, and you see the nice rock formations and stuff. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I'm like, no, you're gonna have to rent a sedan and do that, or a
Right.
hatchback. You're not going to have the RV, and they have to process that. And I've seen people just not want to acknowledge it, and then because these businesses sell for relatively low valuations, the back pocket solution that most of these business owners have then is they simply say, well, I'll just stay for a few more years and I'll earn the money that I
Right.
need. I'll just get the money anyway. And, I was on the phone the other day with a business owner, and that's what he started to come around to. He said, like, well, maybe I'll just keep it. It's really profitable and I like it. And I said, yeah, but here's what prompted you to go down this path in the first place. I said, you started to get tired. You don't want to work anymore. You've got more days behind you than ahead of you, and you realize your days are numbered and you want to be doing something else. And at a certain point in time, those days that you have left are worth more than the money you could earn. That's the tipping point, right?
Right.
Where people are like, yeah, I just need out. And then he said to me, he said, oh my God, he said, you're right. I was just thinking about the money. I wasn't realizing I was going to have to go work for the next 3 years.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, we got to sell. And, you know, this is why the earlier the better.
That's right.
I I know that you work with business owners who want to make their business better so that it becomes saleable. I've got a whole bunch of clients that have come to me over the years to get valuations done on their business, and then they come back every year or two with their new financial statements, and we update the report to
Sure.
try to give them a bit of a scorecard, so they can actually see how they're doing over the course of time. And then we can use those things for other interesting things too, like when they're faced with large capital expenditures, is it worthwhile for me to buy the $500,000 piece of machinery? How is that going to impact the value of my business? Or should I look, we can do a lot more of that kind of advice and just help people make better decisions with that in hand.
Absolutely. And you and I both know the value of that knowledge for the owner. And again, for me, the bigger danger of these calculators we look at is that now those owners think they have that information. And
Yeah.
I think this process clearly illustrates that that's simply not the case.
Yeah. Mike, if people want to connect with you and learn more about your stuff, or read some of the great content you put out on a regular basis, what's the best way for them to find you?
I'm most active on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Search Mike Finger. There's actually more than one, but there's not that many of us out there. And you can find me at exitoasis.com.
And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put your URL for LinkedIn and exitoasis.com in the show notes, so it'll be there for people to find. I'm also going to put links to some other videos, Mike, that you've been in while you're here. And if you're a business owner and you think you want to go through the process of seeing what your business may actually be worth, what it might sell for, and under what terms it will likely sell for, head over to howtosellmyownbusiness.com, which is the website that I maintain that has all of the different services that I do with business owners that are looking to sell. And I'd be happy to talk to you about it. And with that, I'll say thank you very much, Mike. Thanks for going through this and for sharing it all with us. I mean, uh, I've seen some of these online calculators too, and I did not think you were going to show up here saying that half of them gave you a perfectly accurate number. I got to be honest. I was kind of expecting that they might be a little bit off as well.
Yeah.
The first one that I ever saw had a dial on it, and you could use the cursor of your mouse to wind the dial one way or another. And it was a dial that simply said risk, and you could dial it from 0 to 6. And I was just like, how is anyone supposed to know what their number is?
I like this risk number because it made my value go up, right? Again, we're human beings as owners. We want to come away from this process feeling good. So,
yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Mike. We'll
thank
see you next
David.
time.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor.
Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.